Tonight on The Buzz, we look at the state of the media industry 2 weeks before NAB redefines it for the coming year. We start with Mark Harrison, Managing Director of the Digital Production Partnership in the UK. Recently, they researched key hardware and audience trends over the last several years and discovered reasons why what we expected to happen didn't. He has a fascinating report. Next, Douglas Shear has been researching the media industry for more than 40 years as the CEO of D.I.S. Consulting. Based on his studies, he has concerns for our industry that you need to hear. Next, Stefan Lederer is an expert on data management for online video. As the CEO of Bitmovin, he's spent time looking at the impact changes to net neutrality will make on our industry and shares his thoughts tonight. Next, Randi Altman is a highly respected journalist and editor-in-chief of postperspective.com. She shares her thoughts on the changing role of women in the media industry. All this, plus James DeRuvo with our weekly Dottle News update. The Buzz starts now.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative.
One show serves a worldwide network of media professionals.
Current.
Uniting industry experts,
Production.
filmmakers,
Post-production.
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry, covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan. NAB is legendary for setting the direction of our industry for the coming year. It's one of the two major events that developers and users alike look to for new products, new trends, and new ideas. The other is IBC in September. So we thought it would be useful to take stock before NAB starts to get a stronger sense of where we are today. And our guests tonight do not disappoint. Due to time zone differences between Los Angeles and London, I recorded our first guest, Mark Harrison, a couple of days ago. And I'm still reflecting on the key issues he brought up. His research will definitely change the questions I ask industry leaders during our coverage of NAB for The Buzz, and it will also change the way you look at hardware today. It's always true that change is coming, but many times, the change that arrives isn't what we expect. Tonight's guests will give us a better understanding of what's coming, what's important, and what's hype. Before we start, though, I want to invite you to subscribe to our free weekly show newsletter at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Every issue, every week, provides quick links to the different segments on the show, plus articles of interest to filmmakers. And best of all, it's free and comes out every Saturday morning. And now it's time for our weekly Dottle News update with James DeRuvo. Hello, James.
Hi, Larry.
So what's this I see on your website?
I want to let everyone know that we have our annual readers poll going on right now. We've got some exciting plans for this year, and we want to know from our audience how we can best bring Dottle News to them. I would like all of our listeners to swing by the website and take the survey. It's only 10 questions. It'll take you about 3 minutes.
So what's in the news this week?
You know, the Red Hydrogen 1 smartphone that Red has been talking about. It's this game-changing mobile device. It has a holographic 4D display. Unfortunately, it's going to be delayed until the summer. Red former CEO Jim Jannard, who's shepherding the project, says that there's been some supply chain issues, but I think the real problem is carrier certification, which has held up the launch of the device. And when it finally does ship in the summer, first to those who have pre-ordered and then to the rest, Red will launch the Hydrogen Network, an online streaming site for all their 4V holographic video content. You'll be able to not only watch it, but also to offer your own content for sale. It's going to be an exciting project.
Do you see this delay as a big deal?
No, I think it's kind of normal, actually. Red is used to the bleeding edge and designing the next generation of technology. And while this is Jim Jarrett's pet project and it's been beset with a few supply chain issues, so it comes as no surprise that we'll have to wait until summertime, but I kind of think it'll be worth it.
All righty. Well, that's Red. What else we got?
Oculus has announced a new standalone virtual reality headset called the Oculus Go. It's going to be built in partnership with Xiaomi. The Oculus Go doesn't need a computer or a smartphone to run its virtual reality content. It has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 821 processor, 802.11ac Wi-Fi, and 32 gigabytes of onboard storage for under $200. But unfortunately, to meet that price point, the Oculus Go is going to lose the hallmark 3D sound headphones and head tracking, which made the Oculus Rift device so immersive.
Well, what's driving Oculus right now?
I think the bottom line is that when VR headsets launched last year, a lot of them came in with too high a price tag. And then coupled with a lack of content, it caused many, including myself, to view virtual reality as merely a gimmick. If the genre is going to survive, the cost is going to have to come down on hardware. The Rift headset had an original price of around $600, and it's already been cut down to $400. But unfortunately, users would also have to update their computer in order to enjoy the experience. So it became way too expensive to get into it. Oculus had to respond with a more affordable virtual reality option to compete with Samsung's $99 Gear VR, which was linked to the Samsung Galaxy mobile phones. Oculus Go eliminates the need for any computer, any mobile device. It's just a standalone device, and that's going to make it ideal for virtual reality on the go.
Okay, what's our third story this week?
Nikon has launched their D850 filmmaker kit. The D850 is their brand new flagship DSLR. It's a really nice camera. I'd really like to get one. The filmmaker kit comes with a trio of prime lenses. It also has an Atomos Ninja Flame external monitor recorder and a pair of wired and wireless microphones and an extra battery to keep you shooting. And the price is $5,500 for the entire set, which is a $700 savings over purchasing all of those items piecemeal.
Well, why is Nikon doing this?
What's interesting is while Sony, Panasonic, and Canon have ruled this handheld DSLR mirrorless category for video, it's often forgotten that Nikon blazed the trail, first putting video on a DSLR in the Nikon D90. The strength here is the combination of the new D850 and the Ninja Flame external monitor recorder for recording in 4K RAW. And if you're moving from mobile filmmaking through a smartphone or an action camera and really want to cut your teeth on 4K, this filmmaker kit makes it really easy to get going.
Okay, that's Red and Oculus and Nikon. What other stories you're covering this week?
Google may be buying the experimental light field camera company Lytro for an incredible bargain. We launch a new feature called 20 Questions with Chris Johnson of MediaWorkstations.net, and Film It Pro goes global with a new short film contest.
And where can people go on the web to read all of these stories?
Well, first off, don't forget to take the reader survey, and that survey and all of our stories can be found at doddlenews.com.
And James DeRuvo is the editor-in-chief of Doddle News and joins us every week. James, take care. We'll talk to you next Thursday.
We'll talk to you next week.
Starting Monday, April 9, join the digital production buzz at the 2018 NAB show in Las Vegas, Nevada. Larry Jordan and the Buzz team are taking their microphones on the road to cover the latest news and announcements from the largest media show in the world. Every hour of every day, the Buzz is live on the trade show floor. More than 100 interviews, creating 27 new shows in 4 days. The Buzz has webcast directly from NAB for 10 years, and our coverage is legendary, heard in more than 195 countries around the world. If you're attending the show, visit us at booth SL10-527 and say hello. If you can't attend, visit nabshowbuzz.com for a schedule of shows and guests. That's nabshowbuzz.com and join the Buzz at NAB.
Mark Harrison has 20 years' experience as an award-winning freelance producer and director, as well as holding a number of senior innovation roles at the BBC. Now he's the managing director and co-founder of the Digital Production Partnership, or DPP, an international business change network for media companies. Hello, Mark. Welcome back.
Hi there, Larry. Good to speak to you again.
How would you describe the DPP?
Well, the DPP is an industry organization that loves change and loves working with companies who love change. I guess what's unusual about us is that we're not a trade body. So we're not here to advocate for anyone or to defend the interests of anyone. We're here to work with any company in the media supply chain, whether they're in production, whether they're in technology, or whether they're a content provider, to help them to understand and manage change at this really exciting time in media.
Why? Why is this necessary?
Well, it's a great question. It's because, what's really changed about the media industry, I think, over the last few years is that it's just no longer possible to be great at everything on your own. The days of the great big monolith broadcaster or kind of monolith technology provider, giant independent production company that could just do everything have gone. You have to collaborate. You have to be open. You have to find partners if you're going to be successful. And that's leading an awful lot of companies to now want to engage with others. That requires coordination. And really, that's what we do. We're there in the middle, bringing lots of really smart people together so they can work more effectively together.
Well, thinking of smart people, recently, in fact, in February at the HPA conference, you released a report called Why We Get Trends Wrong and How to Get Them Right. What were you studying?
It was something that's been on my mind for a little while because, I go to the Consumer Electronics Show every year in Las Vegas and follow the trends there. And, of course, numerous broadcast technology shows. And I speak at lots and lots of conferences. And I was just becoming aware that the things that I was being asked to talk about and I'd often listen to other people talk about and the things that I would read about in kind of the industry press didn't seem necessarily to be quite the same things that were characterizing consumer behavior. I thought, is this actually true? So I went back using my own notes, going back over many years, and also the power of the internet, and kind of research backwards on what we've been all creating a buzz about over the last kind of 10 years or so, and compared it with what's actually been happening amongst consumers and their use of media.
As you were doing the studying, what did you discover?
I found some interesting discrepancies. So to put them into headline terms, I describe them like this. It seems as if professionals who work in media are so fixated on kind of audio-visual technology that anything that suggests it might somehow change in form is incredibly interesting to them. So they run off and get very excited about it. So particularly if there's a new device, a headset for viewing things on, a new kind of screen, they get very excited about. But that's not what excites consumers. Consumers simply love video, and they love streamed video, and they love it on a range of devices, but particularly their smartphone. And if you look at the impact of those behaviors amongst consumers, the direct impact back into the way the media industry has to commission and make content, you find some really profound changes. And yet those are not the things that we tend to talk about when we all get together at our conferences and shows.
Isn't the tech industry being enamored of new devices focused more on content creation? And what it's saying, it sounds like the consumers focus much more on distribution.
Yes, that's true. That's true. You might say the consumers are very old-fashioned. Somebody said to me recently, and I thought it was a really great observation. They said, what's extraordinary about consumers of media is that unlike any other product, they're all experts. And that's because human beings innately love and understand storytelling. So they know great content when they see it, and they just gobble it up. And really, that's all they want. But somehow the media professionals kind of keep assuming that there must need to be some fundamental changes in how we make and shape content to go on keeping consumers happy. But there's no sign that consumers actually think that themselves.
Why is this important?
The reason I think it's important is because, well, two things, I guess. First, there's not a lot of money around now in the media industry. Even amongst many of the big players, everyone needs to get very focused upon surviving and competing. There isn't lots and lots of money to spend on piloting brand new technologies and building prototypes and doing lots of research and development. And yet we are still wasting millions and millions of dollars pursuing new developments that we think are going to be important, but just aren't. But then meanwhile, if we are to satisfy the demands of consumers, which, for instance, now require us to make very high quality content at extraordinary speed and delivered over the internet with great resilience, then we really do have to focus all our efforts in that place. And frankly, those companies that don't are not going to make it. If you look back over the years, you see this kind of list of technologies that goes 3D, second screen, Google Glass, VR, and they all have this thing in common. They're all demanding that consumers actually consume storytelling in a fundamentally different form. It's a really big ask, and yet time and time again, what I've heard very senior people say is, this is going to change everything. We're going to have a whole new kind of storytelling. It's going to be a whole new kind of creativity, but it never happens.
As you said, consumers are traditional. They like watching it the way they've always watched it, just on devices they already have at hand, TVs or smartphones.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess, that's very untraditional in some respects, because whoever would have guessed, even 10 years ago, that people would be very happy watching high quality content, episodics, movies on a smartphone. That was ridiculous. And yet they do. And we have to respect the fact that they do. I've heard many professionals bemoaning the fact that younger people are content to watch content on a smartphone. But you know what? If you hold that smartphone near enough to your face, it becomes a pretty big screen from the point of view of your field of view. And the quality of it, of course, nowadays is outstanding because of the technology of displays. So we just have to respect that the world of consumption has changed.
So you're saying we need to shift our focus from the technology of content creation to the technology of distribution because storytelling really hasn't changed?
Well, yeah, pretty much that's what I'm saying. But actually, my point really is that the behaviors around content consumption are profoundly changing. In fact, the whole architecture of how we make content, not so much, the filming and the recording of it and the shaping of it in the edit suite, but certainly the point at which it leaves that edit suite and goes through production and distribution chain to get to the consumer. That is having to be dramatically re-architected in order to meet the demands of the consumer. But even in the production realm, although we might use the same tools, we now have to just work incredibly fast because of the appetite for consumers to have good content really quickly. So it's not that the kind of the production and delivery end isn't being changed. It is, but it's being changed in response to consumer behaviors. And I guess what I'm saying is we need to take those more seriously.
Well, the title of your presentation was Why We Get Trends Wrong and How to Get Them Right. We've talked about that we're missing the mark, perhaps, in not paying enough attention to consumer behavior. What do we need to do to get the trends right in the future?
Well, there's a number of things. The first is we have to simply be less snobbish about what it is that consumers like doing. I'll give you an example. A few years back, video became incredibly popular on smartphones. A lot of people began to film holding their smartphone upright. It was the wrong aspect ratio from the point of view of any filmmaker. For a long time, people who worked in, say, broadcasting just insisted consumers were wrong. They were going to have to learn how to shoot correctly. Well, consumers didn't give a fig. They just went on shooting, holding their smartphones the wrong way up. And as a result, they introduced a whole new aspect ratio. And, vertical video is now a capability that has to be incorporated into lots of video playing and creating products. And also, it's a format that now has to be used by people who produce short-form content, such as news and sport. You have to take it seriously. That's thing number one, is respect what consumers are doing, even if it seems odd to you, because it's going to impact you sooner or later. The second thing is follow the money, even if it doesn't in itself look as if it's going to create something new and exciting. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the amount of money the consumers in North America alone are due to spend this year, 2018, on three things: ultra-high definition televisions, smartphones, and streamed video and music. Three things that kind of belong together, because all that streaming content goes into UHD TVs or into smartphones. They are going to spend $100 billion. $100 billion this year alone, just in North America. What are they due to spend on VR? $1 billion. So it's obvious that anything that happens in that streamed video realm into those devices is going to be massively significant. So watch that space and watch for any particular consumer obsessions that happen within it, because they're going to be the ones that matter for us.
So if you were to take a step back and look at where we're going to be in 3 or 4 years, because I don't think anybody can look out much farther than that, where are we going to be?
We'll be making more and better audiovisual content than ever before. And there's no doubt in my mind we're living in a golden age for directors and producers and for content distributors and, of course, for consumers. There's just some absolutely fantastic stuff out there. We'll have more and more of it. It'll get better and better. And consumers will have an appetite for it that grows and grows. But they will have a problem that needs solving. Actually, they'll have two problems that need solving. The first is that they will become extremely intolerant of streamed video that doesn't stream well. So simple considerations like connectivity and the video playing capability of devices is going to be absolutely key. Secondly, and I think even more important, the one thing that's going to irritate consumers more and more is there's all this great content, but they can't find it. And the notion of having to move between different platforms, different providers, different devices to get to what they want is going to really annoy them. At the moment, they could subscribe to a music service and actually they needn't even type anymore. They can just say to their device the title of any piece of music in the world from any point in history, and there's a very good chance it will start playing for them there and then. They're going to demand that that's the case with video. And it's only a matter of how the industry ends up delivering that to them.
Mark, that's some amazing things for us to think about. For people that want to keep track about what DPP is doing and reports like this that you're generating, where can they go on the web?
They can find us at our rather long address, which is digitalproductionpartnership.co.uk. That's our website.
You couldn't get something shorter, huh?
It's a shame that DPP is also the name of a government body in the UK, so that might give people rather the wrong idea.
That website is all one word, digitalproductionpartnership.co.uk, not .com, .co.uk. And Mark Harrison is the co-founder and managing director of DPP. And Mark, thanks for joining us today.
It's been a real pleasure, Larry, as always.
Doug Shear is one of the broadcast and productions industry's leading researchers and consultants. He's been in the field for close to 48 years, and he formed D.I.S. Consulting in 1982, and the firm has served over 1,800 clients, most of them manufacturers. He also serves as the SIMTI governor for the New York region. Hello, Doug. Welcome back.
Thank you.
How would you describe D.I.S. Consulting?
The primary focus is on end users. By that I mean professionals who are active in the different parts of the media and entertainment industry, ranging from broadcast on the high end, let's say, down to the ranks of the freelance providers.
What kinds of projects do you work on?
Over the years, we've studied everything from single product categories like camcorders, servers, lighting, let's say, to entire marketplace like the digital cinematography market, in which there are many products currently in use.
I notice on your website that you're working with a partnership with NAB. What are you doing with them?
It's just a strategic partnership that originally had us doing work for them and then emerged as a way of helping to produce market research and helping to find avenues for marketing it.
Well, I can't think of anybody who's been in our industry longer and studying it more intensively than yourself. And this week, we're talking about the state of our industry. What are your thoughts on the current state of the media and entertainment industry?
Keeping in mind that we really focus on the end users, the professional users of equipment, the people who are the creatives that are making the media, and that our client base is mainly manufacturers of equipment. So having said that, our focus is on changes that are affecting those two constituencies. And among them, what I would call the massive explosion in the ranks of freelancers. So another way of putting it is the Uberization of the professional film and TV workforce, the rising of a gig economy, and the burgeoning of the numbers of people, many of whom used to be full-time employees in various ways, now working exclusively freelancing.
Well, to me, when I hear you describe it, it sounds like budgets are collapsing and more people are making less money.
Well, there is a squeeze. There's no question that there's a squeeze on the incomes of these now increasingly freelance people, where they might have been making anywhere from $60,000 to $150,000 a year as an inside staff member somewhere. They now might make more like $25,000 or $35,000, with the exception of the big markets. So LA, San Francisco, New York, DC, certain larger markets, if we're just looking at North America, there the pay scales are higher, but the work, of course, is very, very competitive.
It seems to me this would have a ripple effect up to manufacturers. If the people that use their gear don't have as much money, they're not going to be buying as much gear.
Well, it's funny. It's had two effects. In the most recent, say, 5 years, it's built companies like Blackmagic, because companies that were offering camcorders and other products very affordably, let's say 4K quality camcorders, found a huge market of more and more people pouring into the freelance ranks who needed to have basic capabilities. They needed to have a camcorder, they needed to have an editing suite, so they needed to buy those things. So at least in the most recent history, it's actually been beneficial to some companies, and it's hurt other companies. So it's been a mixed bag.
Well, let's project out. What are you seeing in the near future for, say, the next 1 to 3 years?
Well, I definitely see a recession.
How so?
An economic recession across, the broad span of all markets. And people that have tried to time such things have gotten into trouble. So I'm just going to say that people are curious. All they need to do is take a look at Wikipedia and look at the number of recessions, the timing of them, the duration of them, and the depth of them. And they would see that, as my father used to say, we're cruising for a bruising. The way it will affect our media and entertainment industry is combining with a weak dollar, weakening dollar, higher interest rates, and the enormous debt that we're carrying, which is now $21 trillion. I think it's going to bring tremendous pressure on media and entertainment markets, theme parks, theater attendance, pay cable, consumer electronics purchases, and on some of the many jobs that I've been talking about. It will ripple across the industry.
So what should media professionals do to get ready or to prepare for this?
Sell your equities. Seriously. I'm really, a lifelong bull. So I'm very much the optimist. But in the short term, I would say the sensible thing, and of course, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would be certainly careful about how much money to have in equities. The other thing, too, is to the degree that you can find employment on the inside as opposed to being a freelancer, if that's what your life looks like today, that you're a freelancer, I would say that would be helpful. Although in a true recession, no job is absolutely guaranteed. But there are other aspects to the near future that I think are worth looking at in terms of the impact that they will have on media and entertainment. The other is the trade war. So we're certainly getting ourselves into what I would call a looming trade war, which, although right now it's very, very limited in its scope, the retaliation on the part of some foreign countries may start to have impacts on this market. I think also that one thing that I see that's developing is a more careful governmental look at companies like Apple, Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Amazon, and many other tech companies. So that's I think, particularly after the midterms, it's a possibility that we would start to see much more scrutiny of those companies, and maybe that might even ultimately, in some cases, lead to pressure to break them up.
So what do you see as reasons for hope? This is a pretty bleak assessment of the next few years.
I guess you would say it is a bleak assessment of the next few years. But I think that from the perspective of manufacturers who have been, the primary clients, media and entertainment is not the only part of their market. So there's the education market, there's corporate, there's medical, there's governmental. There are many different aspects of the market, not just strictly media and entertainment. So in that sense, there's a lot of growth going on. And I think that even during a recession, some areas benefit and others don't. I also think that in some product areas, or let's say technology areas, like VR and artificial intelligence generally, the Internet of Things, and the direction of automation, robotics, and so forth, I think that in those areas, there's a lot of opportunity for growth that could possibly supplant the hit that some of the creative tools might take.
Some fascinating comments. Doug, for people that want to follow your thinking, where can they go on the web?
We have a website, which is DISresearch.com. And I'm happy to receive emails, which is DougShear@gmail.com.
That website is D.I.S. Research, all one word, DISresearch.com, and Doug Shear is the founder of D.I.S. Consulting. And Doug, thanks for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Stefan Lederer is the co-founder and CEO of Bitmovin. They provide software that solves complex video problems for leading media companies worldwide. Hello, Stefan. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me on the show.
How would you describe Bitmovin?
Bitmovin is a tool set out of different parts of the video workflow. Video encoding, video playback, video analytics. So we are providing those tools to engineers, to developers, to producers out in the market, really put together a first-class streaming system. So we really try to be as good as Netflix and outperforming leading providers in the market with the technology, with the compression standards that we're using, with the player implementations that we're using, with the data that we are generating with our analytics solutions, to provide a leading service on the market. And our customers like the New York Times, like Sling, like Periscope, or Cloudflare, for example, are choosing us because of this performance and expertise advantage.
Is your principal market the people who buy your products, developers who are putting products together for consumers, or are you selling direct to consumers?
There are developers that build consumer-facing applications like online video streaming services. And at the same time, we have companies as customers that build end-to-end turnkey solutions for consumers as well as for prosumers or professionals as well as for streaming services. we are not selling to consumers directly, but we have a lot of professionals using our service for projects, small as well as big.
You recently gave a talk at South by Southwest about net neutrality. What did you speak about?
Yes, that was an amazing talk. So we had, for example, Heather from Mozilla, who is heading policy there. We had Nitin from Cloudflare, one of those uprising stars in the CDN space. And we have Fred as a moderator who was responsible for net neutrality at Y Combinator, one of the most important company accelerators in the Silicon Valley. And we talked about the problems that are arising by now the internet being unregulated, having better pipes for streaming services like Netflix for those large incumbents, and how missing net neutrality is hindering and limiting new players in the market to enter the market. I mean, we talked about zero metering, for example, for bandwidth consumption of apps like Netflix versus new providers have to survive in such a ecosystem. And we also talked about all the problems that are arising for the consumers if there's no net neutrality given. Doug mentioned at the end of his interview that there's so many different use cases. But away from media, it's also governments communicate with the population via video. You have e-learning, you have online fitness, you have healthcare, and so many other areas where video is an essential part. And net neutrality is essential to basically guarantee that all the consumers can access those services in the best possible quality, and not only the leading 5 streaming services in the market.
Well, what do you see as the fallout? I know that a number of people are taking the FCC to court to try to overturn the current rules, but what do you see as the fallout if the rules are not overturned?
What we see is that, for example, ISP is preferring certain large providers like YouTube, like Netflix, like the leading streaming services. And it's extremely hard if you're now starting your own thing. You're starting your own live streaming service, on-demand streaming service, or in general, video product. Can also be like worship or, for example, education and so on. And now the consumer cannot watch this service in the same quality as Netflix because you're not in this premium pipe, you're in the standard pipe with a lot of other things, and the quality you can deliver to this particular user is lower than with the market-leading services. So it's hard for you to really enter the market and then be competitive. And that's, I think, one of the major issues that we see, that we are afraid that the variety of services on the market is suffering by a loss of net neutrality with the recent rulings.
One of the other things that caught my eye was a recent report that Bitmovin put together that analyzed the types of media that we're producing. What did you guys discover?
You see so many different areas where video is used. I mean, media broadcasters and telcos and MSOs, that are the classical video providers that we know over the last decades. But new forms of media are everywhere in the internet. With the push of the button, you can generate video with today's phones and cameras, and you can share it on social networks, on your website, and so on and so forth. Services like Facebook and Instagram or Snapchat are completely video-centric. But also beyond that, services like, for example, Cloudflare or online WordPress or other services are having video as an essential part of their offering. So everybody can contribute video now to the web. And we see more and more services coming out in the e-learning space, where we see, for example, you can learn coding, you can learn other skills. E-learning is a huge market. I recently saw a market study that says it's a $160 billion market, which is crazy. And you also see, for example, live streaming of like niche sports or high school sport events, for example, but also esports and things like that, but also in fitness or in lifestyle or in cooking and all those things where you think, okay, there are new ways of consuming content, even e-commerce, websites are using video to better show how their goods are looking like. And we see video is really entering so many spaces. One good one is, for example, internal communication. Every HR department is like super keen on using video for better communication, for delivering information to new employees or existing employees. Town hall events or company-wide speeches are a big topic for large companies, Fortune 5000 companies. And it's unbelievable how much effort is going into those workflows, but it just justifies the importance of video nowadays.
Stefan, for people that want more information or want to learn more about your company, where can they go on the web?
Go to bitmovin.com. That's BIMOVIN.com. And we have a lot of information up there also for new technologies like AV1, which is a more efficient encoding format. That are the things that you need, for example, to fight for net neutrality, even if it's not enforced in the network. And there are a lot of interesting things in our blog, which I welcome everybody to come and read about.
That website is BITMOVIN, bitmovin.com, and Stefan Lederer is the co-founder and CEO. Stefan, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Here's another website I want to introduce you to, dottlenews.com. Dottle News gives you a portal into the broadcast, video, and film industries. It's a leading online resource presenting news, reviews, and products for the film and video industry. Dottle News also offers a resource guide and crew management platform specifically designed for production. These digital call sheets, along with their app, directory, and premium listings, provide in-depth organizational tools for busy production professionals. Dottle News is a part of the Thalo Arts community, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with resources you need to succeed. Whether you want the latest industry news, need to network with other creative professionals, or require state-of-the-art online tools to manage your next project, there's only one place to go, dottlenews.com. Randi Altman is the editor-in-chief of postperspective.com. She's been writing about our industry for more than 20 years, and she is an expert on what's happening in post-production. Hello, Randi. It's been too long since we last heard your voice. Welcome back.
Thanks, Larry. It's good to be here.
There's two things I want to chat with you about today. First is the general state of the media industry, and more specifically, women in our industry. And we'll start with the industry. You just returned from the HPA Tech Retreat. What are your thoughts on what you found there?
As usual, I was hoping to see more young people and more women, and I probably did see a little bit more of both. It was well attended. It's a great place to be, only because everywhere you go, you see somebody you know, and if you don't know them, you're sitting next to them and you get to know them. So it's a wonderful place to learn about technology and trends, and also make friends and potential colleagues and things like that. So it was definitely worthwhile. In terms of the industry and with NAB approaching, there is some excitement, and I have a feeling that the term for NAB this year is going to be AI. So it'll be interesting to see where that is at, how they think it's going to affect, or the products that are available for AI and post and production, and where that's leading. Some people are dubious, some people are excited, just like any sort of new path in the industry. There are believers and non-believers. So it'll be nice to go and see some product and decide where we're at.
Well, how does AI affect media?
It's not necessarily the creative process, but I think it can help with some of the more tedious parts of the job. You and I have spoken about this in the past too, is will it put any creatives out of business? And I truly don't believe that, because I do believe that kind of creativity is human, and that's always important.
Earlier tonight, we heard from Doug Shear, who feels that our industry is heading for some tough times. There's too many freelancers chasing too few jobs. budgets are continuing to shrink, combined with what he sees as a recession in the broader U.S. economy. In other words, tough times for media. What's your thought?
Well, I'm not the sky is falling kind of person, but what he says is there's a lot of truth to that. Yes, there are a lot of freelancers and budgets are shrinking and people have to do things in a lot less time than they used to. But I think what's going to happen is the industry is just going to continue to adapt to that. I'm not an economist. I don't know about the recession, or possible recession coming in the country, but I do know that our industry has needed to adapt over the years, and they've evolved with that. And the term is evolve or die. So we have to keep on chugging along. So we just have to find better workflows, more efficient workflows until other things change.
It just strikes me as we're in really hard times at the moment.
Yeah, I know, and it's. I have been in this industry long enough to have seen many dips and recessions, and the industry always comes back. It comes back in a different way, but it comes back. Things adapt, things change. People find different ways to make a living. I would love for new companies to start popping up all over the place and actually be profitable. I would love for bigger budgets and more time to work on things. But that's just a different world now. That doesn't exist, unfortunately, where we are. I think it all goes back to adapting and trying to keep the creative in the forefront and never lose sight of that. So it's the saying, and I'm going to get it wrong, about how diversity breeds invention. You've got to hope that the big giant brains that we have in our industry find different ways to make things efficient without killing the industry itself.
Well, thinking of things changing, let's shift gears. We're now in the era of Me Too and Time's Up, reflecting the pervasiveness of sexual harassment and assault in the workplace. How do you see this changing the role of women in our industry?
Well, I've already started seeing a change, which has been really kind of fantastic. So over the past couple of years, there's been, at the HPA Tech Retreat, there's the Women in Post Luncheon, and that's always very nice. And there was a feeling of sort of sisterhood in a sense for the few women that were at the HPA Tech Retreat. There was a lot of bonding that was going on and discussions, and also talking to some of the manufacturers and post houses, how they're gearing up and making a conscious effort to look for qualified women, not just to hire a woman, because that helps nobody, but to hire qualified women in whatever job they need to fill. One person said they're hoping to get to 50-50, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little bit. And so that's one good thing that's happening, is that people are more aware that they have to look a little bit further to get some really good talent, and talent with different kind of perspectives, which is always a good thing. But also just opening up the industry to young women and girls who want to join this industry and not be intimidated by engineering in an all-male class, starting them early. And a perfect example of that is NAB. They have their 4K charity run, which I'll see you there, I'm assuming.
The 4K charity run?
Yes.
Only if I can walk.
That's Tuesday morning, and it's a charity run, and the proceeds go. One of the places that they're going to be giving money to is Girls That Code, trying to spread the word a little bit and start programs to get girls to code and not to be intimidated by it. And that you don't necessarily have to be a mathematician to code. Anyone can do it.
Do you see these changes as being systemic, or do you see them being lip service?
No, I think that they're systemic. I really do think that it's opened up people's eyes and something maybe they haven't thought about. I don't believe that it was like the director was deliberately only hiring men on the crew. I just think that they weren't thinking about it, and they've always been surrounded by men, and it just seemed normal. So I think that their eyes are opened a bit more, and I think that you have initiatives that are happening. For instance, just interviewed a director named Jessica Sanders, and she edited a short, and it was at Sundance. She went out of her way to hire mostly female crew, including a VFX supervisor. And she said that's one of the areas in the industry that is wanting. I mean, there's just not a ton of VFX supervisors that are female, she says. So she made a conscious effort. She's always wanted to work with women. She likes having that perspective. But it was also part of a short film series that was dedicated to supporting the voices of female filmmakers. So there is a lot of this going on. And I again, it's just sort of like muscle memory. Once you get used to doing it, it's just going to happen.
Why do you think there's so few qualified women out there? What can we do to boost the number of folks available?
Well, I think there are a good amount of qualified women out there. I just think that, again, it's the just not thinking about there's less women in the industry than men, and maybe you have to look a little further. But again, I think it's getting to the girls young and making them comfortable with more of the technical roles in the industry. We have a lot of creatives, executive producers, but those roles, the more technical roles, are actually they're starting to attract some young females. So I'm hoping that just continues. Again, I really do believe it will be muscle memory. I mean, hopefully in a couple of years, we won't even think twice about it.
How about the pay differential between men and women? Are you seeing that start to be addressed?
To be honest, I don't know that much about the pay differences. Obviously, within the larger scope of the world, yes, and within any industry, but that's not an area that I know about. I'm hoping that, again, people are going to open their eyes and realize that talent is talent, and for the same job, one shouldn't be making more than the other. So again, I hope that people are just more aware.
So if you were to put your future-seeking hat on, what do you think is going to happen over the next 2 years?
I think that we're going to find more and more women in different roles within the industry, women holding each other up and promoting each other. Qualified women. Again, to go back to the bit about companies hiring women, it's all about hiring qualified and talented people, regardless of gender. And it wouldn't help anyone if they just hired women to hire women. They need to hire the women that fill the role and fill it well. So same thing with men. I am hoping that in 2 years, we won't even be having this conversation. That's my wish. I hope that it comes true.
And Randi, for people who want to keep track of what you're writing and thinking, where can they go on the web?
They could go to postperspective.com.
That's all one word, postperspective.com. And Randi Altman is the editor-in-chief of postperspective.com. And Randi, it's always a treat talking to you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Larry.
I was just reflecting on our interviews tonight. There's no doubt that our industry is in a time of upheaval, but as Randi Altman made clear, we've been in upheaval for the last 20 years. The switch from film to digital, from high-price hardware to software that runs on personal computers, from the shift from large technical crews to one-man bands, our industry has been buffeted by changes in audience viewing, technology, and budgets for a long time. It's easy, listening to our guests, to get depressed. There are no end to the challenges we face as media creators. Motivational author Napoleon Hill once wrote, "Every adversity carries with it the seed of equal or greater benefit." Think back to the tools filmmakers were using 20, 30, even 40 years ago. Primitive and limited when compared to what we have today, yet even with the equivalent of stone knives and bear claws, they were able to tell compelling stories that we still watch today. This is why Mark Harrison's comments are so relevant. Don't focus on the latest tools. Focus on your audience. What do they want to see or hear or learn? What's our goal? Is it to tell compelling stories or use the latest gear? If we've learned anything over the last few years, it's that we must not define ourselves in terms of the gear we use, but the stories we tell. A carpenter is not someone who pounds nails with a Stanley hammer, but a craftsman who creates kitchens. Randi Altman is correct. Adversity has always driven creative change. In 2 weeks, NAB will showcase the latest in tools and technology, but as storytellers, we need to remind ourselves that our clients don't care what tools we use, but the results we deliver with the tools that we use. Just something I'm thinking about. I want to thank our guests for this week. Mark Harrison with DPP, Douglas Scheer with D.I.S. Consulting, Stefan Lederer with Bitmovin, Randi Altman with postperspective.com, and James DeRuvo with DoddleNews.com. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And remember to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Saturday. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner, with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Text transcripts are provided by Take One Transcription. Visit takeone.tv to learn how they can help you. Our producer is Debbie Price. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz. A Digital Production Buzz is copyright 2018 by Thalo LLC.